I mean, you're human, but you really ought to be a monster. Considering the common belief that you should avoid causing harm to others and strive instead to be a model of virtue. It's easy to see why. That competitive streak of yours needs to be put away. Your goal should not be to win. You don't want to come across as overly forceful or dominant. Instead, you'd rather take a backseat. You should unleash your inner monster and absolute monster before mastering their powers. When exposed to a new environment, your body responds by enacting changes in the DNA that codes for proteins involved in the development of your brain and nervous system. When you work out properly, the same thing can happen. Since it is not just the muscles that react to the weight, but also the neurological system. That is to say, you believe that you have a great deal of latent potential stored in your genetic code, and that the stress, that is the situational stress that is caused by that particular situation, unlocks those genes and then produces new portions of you. This is awesome because you have no idea how much potential is hidden away inside of you. An extremely dangerous man, not someone you want to cross. The best man I've ever met. There is no such thing as a good man who is completely harmless. Having that kind of self-control makes a man extremely dangerous. Even completely innocuous men aren't popular with females. To put it bluntly, they despise them. They enjoy playing at tearing things apart with their claws. To put it bluntly, women desire males who can threaten them but also wish to help them become civilized. That encapsulates the paradox of Beauty and the Beast. You don't do any harm, and you're not really good either. You're just harmless. That's right, you're as cute as a bunny. It's not like Rabbit to be really good. It just has no options other than to be consumed. It lacks virtue. A monster who doesn't behave monstrously is a good monster. But you must be a monster as well. Of course, Harry Potter is the same way, even though you see it all the time. It's as if there's something innately wrong with him. He's obviously been through some kind of trauma, and he possesses some sort of wickedness. He's a man who can communicate with snakes. When it comes to breaking the rules, he is constantly in violation. He's not really submissive. But he has a legitimate cause for breaking the rules, and if he couldn't break the rules, he and his little group of rule breakers would be in trouble. In order to reach the pinnacle, they had to break the rules. As such, it is odd, although it is a frequent mythological concept. The hero needs to be evil. It's the law of hero stories. However, a monster under human control. That's just Batman for you. I mean, you can find it just about anywhere. Just as in the Harry Potter books, he has a connection to the dark side. A piece of his soul, as dark as night, is permanently lodged deep within his body. Which explains why he can communicate with reptiles. But without it, he wouldn't be able to win. In a psychological sense, you are spot on. Because they will go to lengths you can't even begin to fathom. Evil people are unstoppable until you can learn to think like them. And so the best men I've met was fascinating even when I was in middle school and high school. As most of my friends dropped out around grade 10, and many of them were guys who developed physically. They are fairly powerful, and they are just damn sick of putting up their hand to go to the bathroom, so they aren't doing that anymore. The gym teacher was a tough guy who could do an iron cross, and my friend got tossed out when he challenged him physically. And so it was no small thing for my friend to stand up to him, but he got expelled anyway, and you know. I noticed that it was often the kids whose character I admired that either quit or got expelled. And they were the tougher guys who were sick of following rules that didn't take their character into account. And they'd go off and work in the oil rigs or whatever. You could do that in Alberta at that time. That was really hard work. You know, not that they were necessarily opting for the less difficult route, but rather that a harmless guy is not a good man and that a good man is a very, very dangerous man who has that under voluntary control. If the hero archetype is the central masculine story, then there must be female-centric variations of the hero archetype. And Beauty and the Beast is one such story. And you know, Beauty isn't interested in the person who isn't the Beast. She's interested in the guy who is the Beast, and that's exactly accurate. But she's interested in the guy who is the Beast who can be civilized and disciplined. There are no easy answers. But then there's the question of whether or not you actually seek out a secure haven. Will that satisfy you? Is your goal to be so feeble that you need to be shielded from danger? If you're a paralyzed rabbit living in a hole, what type of life do you have? Is that really how human beings should spend their days? This is the strange paradox. You should be braving peril, the unknown, and malevolence. Who the hell would have guessed that the answer to the problem of tragedy and malevolence is the willingness to face them now? This contradiction was uncovered in part by Buddha but also put out very clearly in Christianity. Absolutely contradictory, right? The question then becomes, well, why does it work? Since this is an utterly contradictory proposal. The more you face them, the stronger you become. And if you doubt that you may become stronger than chaos and evil itself, consider this. That's simple. It's natural for humans to act in that way. Learning occurs when we are exposed to novel situations. Like when a youngster first visits a playground where they may encounter aggressive and chaotic playmates. Now, clearly, there's more to it than that, since children's play involves things like promoting each other, forming friendships, and so on. You put your kid into the playground and say, adapt and you'll be fine. This is a small-scale version of the real world. And they do fine. Therefore they can handle it. It's not a small issue. Intricacies abound on the playground. The youngster is flexible. So, how much room is there for expansion? Can you extrapolate from the mayhem and order and malice of the playground to the mayhem and order and malice of the universe? Indeed, that is the million-dollar issue. I can't think of a good reason to say no to that. As a result, we can't solve the problem because we don't have the whole picture. For instance, what follows the Buddha's enlightenment is a common theme in Buddhist liturgy. In the same manner that the world of Adam and Eve fell apart, so too does the world of the Buddha. This is the result of being constantly confronted with death, right? When Buddha learns that the walled garden he and his father created for him is based on the same motif as the Garden of Eden and the Adam and Eve myth, he has a profound epiphany. A place of such safety simply does not exist. And he finds that out in chunks, right? Which is precisely what happens to children. They go out. They find a limit. They run back, and the parents can help them with the limit. They go out. They find a limit. They run back, and the parents have nothing to say to them because they've hit the same limit that the parents hit. Which is like, well, what are you going to do with your life? In what way, in what manner, are you going to function in this built environment? Your parents may only be able to state that you identify with the correct architectural figures. But they actually do this, or at least act it out for you. However, there comes a moment where they can no longer strengthen you by solving the situation for you. As you can see, one of the finest ways to produce a shadow is along one of two paths that are very congruent with one another. The first step on the journey to truth is to accept the unpalatable reality about who you really are. But if you want to be more specific, you may conceive of that as the ability to notice your own resentment. Many times, you won't receive what you want, and that will make you bitter and angry. If you pay attention, though, you'll discover that this bitterness and anger give rise to dreams that are incredibly disturbing in their depth. And you might not want to accept the fact that you are capable of experiencing such dreams, impulses, or aggressive feelings. But the point is, if you let those violent feelings, impulses, and fantasies become part of your character, it's like you're starting a conversation with a very powerful and potentially dangerous aspect of yourself. It helps a lot to be dangerous, since you don't always have to be, and if you can, you won't have to. And it's usually vulnerable folks, like a weak man. Rape is a violent act that unfortunately happens all too frequently. But it is one that stems from a lack of strength rather than a display of superiority. And so anyways, you attend to your resentment honestly, and you observe yourself and what you're actually like. You gotta pay attention as if you don't know yourself, as if you might harbor hidden devils. If this video was helpful, please like, subscribe, and set an alarm, and I will repay you with a better video.